What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to From the Source. I'm from the source with the source, and I'm here with
Hayes Fawcett.
we got Hayes Fawcett 3, recruiting analyst slash newsbreaker slash graphic designer. Now, Hayes, you are probably one of the most well-known content creators, newsbreakers, recruiting analysts, all that stuff in the college football landscape. But I wanted to know, when did you become a college football fan?
Man, so growing up in a small town in Louisiana, my dad was real big into sports. So growing up, I was brought up in that environment, not only by my dad, but my grandparents as well. So, I mean, I guess you could say I've been a football fan for as long as I remember, right? Like I grew up playing. As soon as I could, run, catch, and throw, started playing flag football. I mean, like you, here we are today, and the game has brought us so many different places, and
Yeah.
man, football just everything, bro.
Okay. I think for me, the first season that I really watched college football, and it's crazy because before then I was playing basketball. Um, it was the 2013 season. I remember I was watching Ohio State with my dad. Like obviously I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, so I was always like a Browns, Cavs fan and everything. I didn't really watch college too much, and I watched that game. And do you remember Braxton Miller?
Of course.
Braxton Miller was the reason why like I made it to college as a quarterback because I watched that. I was like, yo, I want to play quarterback. So that was like the very first season that I got into college football. And I feel like this would be a good segue into my next topic. The very next season is when they stopped making the college football video games. And as you know, this is the first year that the college football video games are being made, first time in 11 years, I believe. What are you most excited about for this video game to come out?
Man, the list is long for sure, but first off, you know, I grew up playing that game back on the as far back as the PlayStation 2. I would play with my older cousins, moved on and played on the PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the road to glory aspect. I remember I made a quarterback and went to Boise State because I loved that blue field back in the day as a young kid.
Yeah.
But I played Road to Glory with him. I ended up like transferring the file or whatever to Madden, and he continued to play for the Cowboys. But yeah, I mean, coming back to this game here, Road to Glory would have been something I was like extremely interested in. It kind of sucks though that you don't get to start out in high school. I put a tweet out about that. In my opinion, the whole point of Road to Glory is starting off as an unknown recruit in high school, getting better, becoming a star, getting recruited and going to college. But, they took that away. It is what it is. But there's plenty of other stuff to look forward to with this game. Me personally, I'm very much looking forward to the online dynasty aspect. Um, I'm kind of thinking about you know, making a dynasty with like one player from each team. Like, Ohio State, I could see if Jeremiah Smith wanted to play. Alabama, Ryan Williams, just people like that. I think that would be some crazy games, very entertaining. Maybe find a way to stream that or something. But that's just an idea. But yeah, no, most definitely online dynasty is going to be fire.
Okay. I actually made a segment. I still have to post this clip, but on the Trayvon Maddox show, I made a segment of like the top teams that you should do rebuilds with. I talked about UCF and all the uniforms and like Florida recruiting and stuff. Talked about Houston. What do you think are some of the more interesting programs to rebuild on college football 25?
Man, so first off, Coastal Carolina. Like I mentioned earlier, that blue field for Boise State's fire, the turquoise field for Coastal Carolina.
Hmm.
I love it. A team like Kent State, one of the worst teams on paper right now in college football, according to some magazines I was looking at. That would be a very um, fun team to literally build from the ground up. James Madison is another team that I'm interested in rebuilding. And shout out to James Madison. I mean, they had a crazy year last year. But they lost their head coach, lost a lot of key pieces, including their starting quarterback and other guys like that. But anyway, those three are some teams I'm highly considering rebuilding in EACFB 25.
Yeah. And it's funny because like you already know that I'm an Ohio State fan, and I actually decided that my very first dynasty team that I'm gonna rebuild, and this is gonna be non-online because I can't compete with nobody online with this team as it is, but I want to do Akron. And it's funny because Akron, that's the closest, I guess, FBS football program to Cleveland, Ohio. And if I do Akron, my very first game on Dynasty is gonna be against Ohio State. And I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, nah, for sure. For sure. The
So
Zip.
Zips, man, go Zips. So what would you say is your favorite slash most memorable game of football that you've watched?
Man, that's a great question. There's been so many good college football games I've watched. Um, I really enjoyed watching that Alabama and Auburn game last year. I know that's one that's extremely fresh on my mind, but that 4th and 31, in a rivalry game like that, just insane. I mean, what are the odds you complete and score a touchdown with, I don't even know. Well, but 4th and 31,
Yeah,
like the odds are
it's
just
crazy.
crazy. And then, I mean, like, what was it, a year or two before that? Alabama's down 10-7 against Auburn on the 3 yard line, drive 97 yards down the field and score to tie up the game and eventually win it in overtime. I mean, games like that is just why you love college football. Crazy endings in a rivalry game. I mean, those really stand out to me.
Okay, okay. Now, did you have a favorite season that comes to mind? Like in terms of like the whole season, everything that went down, big games, big rivalries, upsets, things like that.
Man, the 2019 season was definitely crazy. But actually, looking back on it, there will never be a season like 2007. Do you
Mm,
remember that? The upsets. I mean, that's back when it was the BCS National Championship, so there was no college football playoff.
nah.
Um, and man, you know, there was just so many crazy upsets. And as an Ohio State fan with you, I know y'all are the number one team and played LSU, who was number two.
Yeah.
But LSU had two losses in 2007, and back then with two losses, you weren't making the national
You're
championship.
done. You're done.
But with the way that everything kind of played out, just the upsets. I mean, there's some crazy YouTube videos on that you can watch that have like millions of views, just kind of laying out the landscape of the 2007 season.
Yeah.
Um, and man, just watching that, it's like, can you imagine if this would happen every year?
It's
Crazy, crazy.
Yeah, I think honestly, if I had to say, and this is not even like just as an Ohio State fan, you took the words of my mouth when you said 2019, but the more that I think about it, 2016 was a very special season too. Um from the game between Ohio State and Michigan, that game went into overtime. That was the first, I'm not sure if it was the only one, but that was the first uh version of the game that went into overtime. That game had me on the edge of my seat. Um, I think even that loss that Ohio State suffered against Penn State, that game was crazy, man. You had Trace McSorley making plays all over the field, Saquon Barkley making the plays. That blocked field goal that they returned for a touchdown, like that was madness. There were so many crazy games that happened that season. And I feel like that's gonna be, and you had like Lamar Jackson's Heisman season. I think what was it? Texas versus Notre Dame, I believe. That game was crazy. Clemson versus Louisville.
That game was wild.
Man, it was so many great games, right?
No cap, man.
And speaking of, you said a big word when it comes to like upsets and shockers and everything like that. And in the recruiting world, I really just started following recruiting last spring. I started following recruiting because it was like nothing else really going on for real. And I was like, you know what? I remember when Ohio State landed Aaron Nolan. And I was like, yo, we got a quarterback named Air. This is kind of cool. And I played football for Glenville High School when I was in high school. So Bryce West and Demarion Witt. And when I seen like, oh, we got Glenville has two really good kids and they have all these offers. I wanted to go to Ohio State. I started following recruiting and everything. And it was kind of cool seeing these kids commit, seeing like the different ways they commit and things like that. But you get the scoop first, and then from there you break the news. What would you say so far in your experience with doing this was the most shocking commitment that you had to break the news for?
Man, so first off, the way these, high school recruitments go nowadays, you don't really see a lot of like shocking recruitments because these insiders will put out predictions and crystal balls
The
before it happens.
ball.
Um, so it's pretty rare, but there's definitely been some more shocking ones that have come up. For instance, last July 4th, Cam Coleman committed to Texas A&M virtually out of nowhere. No one was expecting it at the time. Auburn was the clear leader, which he ended up flipping to near signing day. But that was definitely a shocker. That's why nowadays I'm sure with you, um, one who kind of consumes the news, I'm sure you're probably a little bit more interested in transfer portal stuff nowadays. Because I mean, with high school, you can kind of get a good grasp early in advance of where a kid's going to go, stuff like that. But transfer portal, man, it just moves so quick, and not a lot of people are like putting out these predictions or even have enough time to gather information because like I said, it just happens so quick. They'll enter the portal, they'll take a visit, they'll commit.
Yeah. For sure. I think one evolution when it comes to me going from like just being a fan to actually being a content creator and becoming more like unbiased and taking my bias out of my content and just like enjoying college football, I started looking at everybody more, not just Ohio State. I like to see what Syracuse has going on. I like to follow um Oregon State in their recruiting class and how they are able to adapt from losing head coach Jonathan Smith, things like that. Hayes, you broke my freaking heart last week, man. When you posted that commitment flip for Keelan Russell, I think his name, from SMU to
Yeah,
Alabama, that hurt. Cause like I kind of like one thing that I discovered about myself, I kind of like seeing like these highly ranked prospects going to like the lesser known schools. Like I really like that for college football.
dude, yeah, man. I had this conversation a couple of times last week with some other people, and man, like I feel bad for SMU. They got on him early before
Yeah,
he was, this top 60, top 10 quarterback in the country.
yeah,
Really good early eval, had him in the boat. He's a hometown kid, you know, just got off that OV to SMU with all their other top targets. And then to see him flip to Alabama, as an SMU fan, that's gotta hurt, man, for real. I agree with you. I would really like to see those big time players like that, go to a school like SMU, be
yeah.
that hometown hero, have a chance of starting right away.
Yeah,
I mean,
I love when that happens. I believe man, what was the guy's name? It's gonna come to me as soon as I say it. But
Hakeem was it.
he was at the time the highest rated commit to Arizona. He was an edge rusher, I believe. And then he
Oh,
and
Elijah Rushing.
Elijah Rushing. Then he ended up going to Oregon, right?
Yes, yes.
Man, I was like, dang, this is because I remember Ohio State was like trying to get him, and then he ended up committing to Arizona. I was like, well, that's good. Like, kind of like balance out college football. But it's kind of hard. Like, it's very hard. I'm going to be able to see that a little bit in the college football 25 video game, but it's really hard to keep a commitment and things happen really fast, which leads me into my next question. When it comes to you breaking the news and using your commitment graphics to break the news, what was the fastest commitment graphic you've had to come up with? Like you just found out, okay, this kid is going here, maybe wasn't expecting that, and had to come up with something fast.
Man, it's for sure 100% no doubt a transfer portal commitment. Like that's no question about it at all. Because with high school, usually I have a good bit of time in advance. And if I don't have time, they'll wait for me to finish. But like I said, with transfer portal, it just moves so quick. And me as a newsbreaker, I have to have I have to like think in the back of my head, hey, if I don't finish this by a certain time, somebody else might scoop me, you know?
Yeah,
So there's been there's been instances where, I've had like a 20, 30 minute time frame. Like for example, Dante Moore called me like 30 minutes before he wanted to announce.
yeah,
All right, bet I can do this real quick. So I remember just dropping everything, getting on my computer, whipping something up real quick, and then man, that just kind of goes to show you just how fast things move in the portal.
yeah. Now, when you said like having to like hurry up and like whip something up, sometimes you might not have as much time as you have with other commitment graphics. Now, with that being said, what do you think was the best commitment graphic that you've designed?
It's another great question. Three of them really come to mind whenever this question's asked. First off, I really like the Ryan Williams to Alabama graphic. His second when he recommitted last year.
Yeah,
Um, I like the Colin Simmons to Texas graphic. Ton of detail into that. Man, I spent probably 5 or 6 hours on that piece.
yeah,
Um, and then I also really, really like the Evan Stewart to Oregon graphic, just the way all the colors kind of pop. And I mean, you know how it is with those Oregon jerseys. It's just like, just
yeah.
makes the graphic just pop even more. So those three definitely stand out to me.
Yeah, I definitely remember for sure the Colin Simmons graphic. I remember seeing in the comments when Ryan Williams recommitted to Alabama. Somebody had put in the comments, it was like, nah, he decommitted to get a better graphic. And I thought that was pretty funny.
That's
You've made a couple of good ones. Let me see really quickly which one is my favorite. You've got a couple of them, but I think obviously the Ohio State ones come to mind. Of the Ohio State ones that I've seen, I think my favorite one that you've made might have been the Aaron Scott one with the all white.
Oh yeah, you like that one?
Those ones was always pretty good. I remember like how you were saying you would only have like a few minutes to get some of these transfer portal graphics out. It's funny because like some of these guys who are committing to these schools, they didn't even take official visits to. So like you don't even have like visit pictures to go off of. You just like kind of have to like put things together pretty fast.
Yeah, no, I've started doing that for sure this cycle with a little jersey tear thing to where,
Yeah.
I'll do a full jersey swap and save some time. And at the same time, it just kind of like shows what school they're coming from, what school they're going to. So those have been a big game changer in my transfer portal process for sure.
Okay. And when it comes to transfer portal, commitments, decommitments, flips, how do you feel about flips specifically? Do you feel it is like, okay, it's another opportunity for me to make another announcement, make another graphic, or do you kind of feel like it can get overwhelming sometimes when you have so much stuff going on?
Man, so over time, I've definitely kind of not perfected my craft, but I've gotten better at, you know, kind of turning this into a science, if you can say.
Yeah.
Um, so anytime I get word on any announcement, I'm happy to do it. That's my job. That's what I love to do. Um, and I mean, the more news I can break, the better. And like I said earlier, it's fun. It's something I enjoy doing. At times, yeah, it can get overwhelming, but there's definitely times of the year where it's crazy busy, and then there's times of the year where you can kind of relax a little bit.
Yeah.
So I kind of keep that in the back of my head, like, hey, I just got to grind out this month. Um, in a month or two, it'll slow down, and I can, recharge my battery, if you
Yeah,
will.
for sure. I think something I had noticed because by then I was already following Hayes Fawcett. I was already looking at I had the post notifications turned on for all the commitments and everything. But when the season started and you started making like the final score, the halftime score, I found those pretty interesting. I really like those. I really like those.
Man,
Actually,
yeah, because that's another thing. Like with my page, at first I was just strictly posting top schools, commitments,
mhm,
decommitment, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, if you follow recruiting, you're a college football fan.
yeah,
So, so those two styles of content intertwine. And, at the end of the day, on a Saturday when you're watching Ohio State versus Michigan and, people are posting about it. I mean, from experience in the group chat, on a
Hmm.
game like that, Ohio State versus Michigan, that group chat is jumping,
It's
right?
crazy.
So just think about a public post where it's a huge reach for all fans from different teams to just come in and say stuff and interact. I really enjoy doing that.
Yeah. And that's pretty sweet. I feel like another thing, I don't know if you've thought about this or whatever. I know you've been discussing like a lot of college football 25 content with Tone, but I think another thing too, like when these ratings drop, whenever they do, that could be like you can make graphics from those and like
Oh, that is 100% going to be posted. I'm going to post
yeah.
the overalls. I'm going to go by position, by conference, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, when those ratings drop, that is just like gold mine content for
It's,
real.
it's great. Like I think kind of how you did when you put like the halftime score, final score, you had the boxes, each team score. You could put like Emeka Egbuka 94 overall, and then awareness or whatever like his highest attribute is like right next to there. Like and that'd be pretty smooth. And then that'll also give people ideas of like what teams and like what programs they want to rebuild too.
No doubt about it. No doubt. So, do you know when we're going to get the ratings, or is it just going to be a deal where, hey, the game comes out, go check all the rosters? What would you rather?
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. That's what I do when I first get when I first get a video game like Madden. That's the only football game we've had for a while. I kind of like waiting. I like waiting and then just spending like 2 hours just going through the roster, looking at like the face scans, looking at the overalls, things like that, like the equipment and everything. Like I love doing that. And since this is gonna be the first time that this game has been out in 11 years, I genuinely believe that if EA decided right now we're not gonna post anything else until the game comes out, like it would still have peak attention. Like there's nothing that can get people's attention off of this game because like it's just so needed. Like the it, it's just been out, it's been away for so long that people are gonna be so excited that they're not even gonna care. Like they're gonna be like, okay, it doesn't matter if you give away too much information, if you don't give away anything, like the excitement level is still gonna be up here.
No doubt about it. And that kind of brings up an interesting point to talk about because I was watching a video last night. And obviously, we both know that the last time this EACFB game came out was 2014. Um, and my biggest worry, and again, it probably won't happen, but my biggest worry is that in the future,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna enjoy this first game. Everybody will. But my biggest worry is that EACFB 25 and onward after that, it becomes like a 2K or a Madden to where it's just like copy paste game,
mm,
same thing, minimal changes, minimal like details added. That's my biggest worry. But at the same time, college football and professional basketball and professional football, way different,
yeah,
way different. And all the different, I guess, kind of game modes within the game are different. The traditions, the details, different.
yeah,
But I know for a fact, you know, as a consumer, it's like normal to compare EACFB 25 to, the college football 14 game. It's going to be drastically different.
yeah.
And that's going to bring just a ton of excitement, which it already has, ton of anticipation, which it already has. But my main concern is I want this, game to continue to grow and evolve and be great like it should be.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest part about these video games is the fact that it has such a big community. So when it comes to especially college football, because think about it, we had people had to play NCAA 14 for 11 years. And for those after those first few years, college football revamp came out and they started having like mods and stuff like that. and they found a way to keep this game relevant. So I feel like for me personally, what I do with like Madden and stuff like that, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't buy a new Madden. Like I have Madden 20, I had Madden 23. And at first I didn't buy Madden 24. I didn't buy it. I only ended up getting it once I got the PS5 because it was on sale for like 50% off. But like within the community, once you put out a game, the community can do so much with it between like downloadable content and stuff like that. So for example, like the recruiting classes, I already decided in my head I'm not gonna buy the deluxe edition because like with the deluxe edition, you get the 3-day early access, and that's cool and all, right? But I already know I want to hop into dynasty mode so fast. So I want to give it that 3 days for people who get early access to start making like the recruiting boards and stuff like that. Just like they do like the draft classes with Madden, I like to wait like a couple of days to like a week and to like because you know there's gonna be somebody who's gonna be grinding away, putting in hundreds upon hundreds of players from high school into like the recruiting classes and everything. And that way, like I don't have to do it. Like you already have like all those guys who are like in the 2025 class, Bo Jackson, and you'll have freaking Tavian St. Clair, Bryce Underwood, all these guys. Um, I'm really looking forward to seeing like what the community can do with it. Because then, like, okay, if you see college football 26 coming out and there's minimal improvements, it's just a cash grab. We have a video game. Like we have college football 25. You can update rosters, you can do all that stuff. So like we just need this game to drop. And then we're gonna be good for a while, you know?
Nah, I'm with you 100%. 100%.
Okay, okay. All right. Last question that we'll get into for this episode of From the Source. I want to know, and I gave my predictions, and like you referred to the group chat that we're in, it's filled with Ohio State fans. You know I'm an Ohio State fan. I gave my post-spring conference predictions. I'm gonna also give like my post-fall ball conference predictions. So things can change. But for my predictions, I said the SEC. I had Georgia and Texas facing each other in the SEC championship game. I gave the edge to Georgia. ACC, I said Florida State versus Clemson. I think Florida State can pull it out. Um, Big 12, this was wild, but I said Arizona and Utah, and I said I think
I
Arizona can
like
pull it out.
those.
Tedero and McMillan. And then you also have that quarterback like Noah Fafita. And then this is when I ruffled some feathers in the group chat. I said Oregon will beat Ohio State in the regular season, and then they would match up again in the championship game. And I had Ohio State taking it. Let's start over in SEC. If you had to give your predictions of the two teams that would be in that game, which two teams would it be?
Man, so bro, I'm not even gonna lie to you. This is like crazy to say, but I kind of agree with all the teams that you said for like every conference, strictly because I like knowing how talented like all these rosters are, especially from recruiting and portal. Like, dude, that the big championship game with Ohio State and Oregon, like, bro, those two teams, and I know I'm kind of going off on a whole different topic,
You
but
are.
those two teams, in terms of recruiting the portal and in terms of recruiting high school, they're definitely like both, consistent top. I mean, they're top tier, no doubt. I mean, bro, if you look at what Oregon did, like we're gonna go team by team. Like Oregon just signed their highest ranked class in program history in 2024. And then on top of that, they go in the portal, add Evan Stewart, they add Dante Moore, Dylan Gabriel, they add Derek Horman, the top defensive lineman in the spring window. Man, like they get
They
Jabbar
also got
Muhammad.
Jabbar Muhammad. I was about to say the corner from Washington.
They get another corner from UTSA, I believe. I forget his name.
Yeah,
But man,
I know he's a
like
well.
dude, it is like crazy. And then I mean, you look at Ohio State. Obviously, Ohio State gets Julian Sayin, Caleb Downs, the number one player in the portal. You get a veteran center in Seth McLaughlin. I think that's how you say his last name.
Yep.
Alabama. And then I mean, just look at the class you brought in, and it just speaks for itself.
Mm.
those two rosters playing against each other is like insane. And that's another reason why I'm a big fan of this 12 team playoff. And like I'm kind of curious to see if you're a fan of the 12-team playoff as well. Because
Yeah,
dude, those matchups we're gonna get are going to be elite. And on top of that, dude, just imagine, you know, an Ohio State hosting a first round playoff game at home.
and the
We
shoe would be crazy.
we have never seen atmospheres like this, bro. I'm telling you. And I see the other side of it, how people like the 4 team or whatever, because it really puts the emphasis on the regular season. I see that point. But like, dude, we're getting more football. We're getting opportunity. Like, bro, imagine a, like a 10 seed upsetting a 3 seed in
Yeah,
the college football playoff. I mean, like those opportunities are just like second to none. And I mean, I'm very interested,
yeah.
extremely interested to see how all these 12-team playoffs, um, kind of unfold. Kind of curious to see your opinion as well.
Honestly, I'll say this. I see the timer is on for like 2.5 minutes, so I'll make it quick. Well, here's my take on the whole 12-team college football thing. I think it creates better football in general. You're gonna have to manage these games a lot better. Like, for example, we saw at the end of last season, the reason why Florida State didn't make the playoff was because they lost their quarterback when they played against like some random I don't even know if there was an FBS team, like some random team. Um, late in like what October, late in like November. So you got situations like that where you're gonna have to potentially go 16, maybe 17 games. Let's see, 12. If you're like group of 5 team, 12 games, conference championship, and then you might have to play 3 to 4 games. So yeah, you can go 16, probably 16 games if you want to get to a national championship game, right? You're gonna have to manage your roster from game to game. Like how they said on the college football video game, the wear and tear system. There's wear and tear
Yeah,
in real life. Like how will Ryan Day, who notoriously doesn't really offensively at least, doesn't rotate that many guys in at like positions like wide receiver and things like that. And like late in game doesn't really give tons of opportunities to young guys. He's gonna have to rely on those young guys more in that depth. You talked about Oregon. Oregon has 2 starting caliber quarterbacks, and they're gonna need both of them because you have so many games and you're gonna need to rely on so many guys just to keep guys fresh to get through them to a 12, like get them to week 13 and then get them to championship weekend, much less actually getting to a 12-team playoff. But we are running out of time. Hayes Fawcett, thank you for coming on. Guys, make sure you follow Hayes Fawcett on Instagram, Twitter, all his platforms for all college football coverage, commitments, recruiting, transfers, everything. Thank you, Hayes, for coming on. Guys, remember, always get 1% better every single day. Peace.